everybody. It's Friday, August 1st. Happy August. So we finished casting the sculpture a week ago today on July 25th. And then on Sunday, Paige and Aaron and the crew from Working Title Partners production company came for a preliminary site visit to see the studio, see the sculpture, talk about a game plan for Monday. And then Monday was a full day of filming with the full crew here. And they were great. They were a pleasure to work with. It was really exciting to have them here. And I saw a few glimpses of some of the footage that they were able to capture, and it looks pretty incredible. So they were here when we removed the forms from the sculpture and saw the full sculpture for the first time. And it's always a little bit of a nerve-wracking process to build something in this way because I can't see the full sculpture until all the forms are removed. And I was pleased when we removed the forms that everything looked like it went according to plan. And it was really great to have the film group here and Paige here at that moment when we removed the forms and saw the sculpture for the first time, because I was able to ask them some questions and hear about what they were seeing and get some feedback from them about seeing the sculpture in person. After the forms were removed, the whole sculpture got disassembled and cleaned. During the casting process, all of the rock that is exposed, all the gypsum rocks that have no plaster on them, were covered with a water-based ceramic clay to protect them from the plaster. And then, once everything was cleaned up, we laid out the whole sculpture in all its parts, disassembled on the floor in the studio so that all of the water from the washing process could dry and evaporate a little bit. Yesterday, the whole sculpture got reassembled, and here it is now fully assembled. So here it's sitting on a studio surface plate stone and a pallet that allows me to move it around the studio with a pallet jack. So right now, as it stands, it's about 6 inches higher off the ground than it will ultimately be in the lobby in Charlotte. One of the things I want to talk about today is the idea of tinting the plaster. I had done some tests and some experiments with the idea of possibly tinting the plaster at each quarry level to match the color, the subtle colors of the rocks from each quarry, because I wasn't sure if when we saw the final sculpture it might need another element to it. So it was good to have done those tests and experiments, but now that I see the full sculpture and I see how the plaster is framing the rocks and presenting the rocks, I've decided to leave the plaster in its natural white color. I think the plaster needs to be a continuous unified element in the sculpture. And each plaster layer is representing National Gypsum's 100 years. So I think that needs to be a continuous rhythm and a unifying force within the sculpture. And I think if we were to introduce color at each quarry level at this point, it would divide up this continuous element of the plaster, and it would interrupt that unifying feel that the plaster is giving. So we're going to keep the plaster in its natural white. So now that the piece is complete, it needs to dry for as long as possible before we disassemble it and pack it and crate it for transport. So the plaster is still pretty wet. There's still some moisture in the rocks. So we'll leave it here standing assembled and let it dry for the next couple of weeks. And we may also disassemble it into all its separate pieces to let more air circulate around it to try to drive off more of the internal moisture. Thank you everyone for all your continued work with making everything happen, and I'll have another update for you in a week or so.